All right, so thank you for joining us. Before we get started, we're just going to go through a few quick kind of housekeeping slides, if you will. So first, please, if you can, make sure your computer speakers are turned on. If you do have any issues as far as seeing us, the presenters, go, please refresh your browser. That should definitely help. If you have any other issues, feel free to email us at gethelp@vivial.net. And then also, too, this will be available tomorrow for on-demand viewing.
So before we get started, there is a few things you'll see on the screen. First, the Q&A box. And by the way, if they're kind of off the screen a little bit, you can scroll through the screen depending on how big your screen size is, and you can move things around. But the Q&A box, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, just type them in there. Towards the end of the presentation, we're actually going to switch over to Facebook Live for a Q&A, which will be fun and exciting for everybody. And we will also be mentioning resources throughout the presentation today. So when we do mention something, there's a resource box that you can go and click on a link and you can download or click through to whatever resource we're mentioning at the time. So keep that one in mind as well. So today we're going to be talking about basically all things local search and how you can be successful promoting your business within local search. And really there's three types of results within a local search page, and we're going to break those down and talk all about those. We're going to talk about the difference in methods of showing up into those three sections and kind of go over all the most important factors that go into showing up in any of those sections. So everything you need to know to be successful in local search. My name is Eugene Farber. I'm the SEO manager here at Vivial. So I'm basically in charge of making sure that Vivial.net is in good standing with Google. Prior to here, I've worked with businesses of all sizes and industries doing SEO for them. Started my career out when I kind of fell in love with search because I recognized how powerful it is to show up in results when somebody's searching for something. So as nerdy as that sounds, I do love SEO, and that's why I'm here right now.
Cool. I'm Matt Siafi. I'm a senior agency strategist here. I've been with Vivial for 4 years. When I first started, I was working with a lot of small and medium businesses. And I started to work with multi-location. Now I handle most of our national accounts here at Vivial, and definitely along the same lines of Eugene. Started it, fell in love with it, fell in love with data and analytics, and here we are.
Yep. So just a couple nerds.
Yep. Oh yeah. Also, too, we're going to try not to get into too much of the nitty gritty, but in case we do, there is a Google glossary here, which essentially breaks down maybe some of the language that we talk about if we're not, because again, we only have limited time. So, and this is one of those resources available. And also, too, just to note, you're going to see on a lot of the images and graphics, we do refer to Google a lot. It is the primary search engine. It owns most of the space, and most other search engines are also modeled after Google. So if you're doing the right things for Google, you're probably going to be doing the right things for everybody else. So cool. So I guess we'll jump in. So obviously, what everyone's here for, local search. So what exactly is local search? So I'm sure you guys have probably done it a million times. Very simple. It's if you're looking for a product, a business, a service, whatever it may be, followed by a location. So we have an example here. The example that we used was a locksmith in Brooklyn, New York. So a type of a service, and then the location behind it. We're based in New York, so we put Brooklyn, New York.
Yep. And that type of result is going to look different depending on what you're searching. So if you're searching for lasagna recipes, for example, that's going to look very different in the search results than looking for a service next to you. So just to go here, sorry, technical difficulties for a second, and we're back. Okay, so a local search result typically is going to have 3 separate sections, and the very top section is going to be your paid results. This is basically your pay to play. People are literally paying to show up in that section of the search results. You're bidding against other businesses to kind of show up to see who's going to be first, last, or showing up at all. There's some factors into who's showing up, and we'll go over a few of those later. But just know that the very top, typically, if it's a search worth bidding on, somebody's bidding there, and the very top is going to be your paid results.
And so then the section below that, which I also too like to point out that this is really what kind of makes this search results page a local search results page. Because you can see right here we have the map section directly below that. And so that section, it used to just be organic, what we call it, meaning not paid. But that section now actually does house a few spots for organic and paid to play section there. And then, of course, the section below that is all the organic results. And so like we listed here, that's essentially broken down into merit-based results. That section is really just about building trust within search engines. And typically the way I like to talk about it is the paid section is a little bit more of like the instant traffic, if you will. And the organic is a little bit more of a marathon kind of approach. You're going to continue to hack away at that. And then we break down most of that throughout this. All right.
So yeah, as we mentioned, we're going to be using some jargon that, if you're not too familiar with local search, you might not know what these mean. So we're going to break it down for you and kind of the difference between the two. So typically, again, we're back to the screen with our local search example. And again, the very top is the paid results. So that is strictly SEM. And when we say SEM, that's search engine marketing. That means somebody is literally paying to show up in those results.
And then below that, just to recap again, so when we talk about organic, that's really the SEO side of things, search engine optimization. And then where we have the overlap is with the map section, which has essentially a bit of both tactics involved there, and to get your business inside that map section for a local search.
Yeah. So now that we've kind of gone over the differences, we'd love to know what you as the audience are kind of pursuing in your marketing. Are you trying to show up in the paid results? Are you trying to show up in maps? Are you trying to do organic? So we will actually have a poll, and we'd love for you to answer. Give you a couple minutes, and not only I think it'll be interesting for everybody, including the audience, but it'll also help us put out great new content for you going forward.
Yes, absolutely.
So yeah, take a minute, fill out the very simple poll you see on the screen. And you can choose more than one, by the way. If you're doing paid and maps and organic, choose all three. You're probably doing great. Good job.
Yes, kudos to you. And also, too, and if you're not doing anything, you can leave it as I'm not sure, or haven't focused on any.
And that's also okay, because we'll explain how you can.
So
just a few seconds to get some second answers in.
And all right. So it looks like we have a good amount of organic, actually, and also, too, a nice focus on the map section. And also, too, actually, really nice, actually relatively even as far as the maps and the paid section goes, which is that. And then there's a few that aren't focused on much.
So it does look like the majority of people, really the only majority here is organic, right? So a lot of people aren't taking advantage of paid and maps. So the good news is we will go through and show you how you can maximize those for yourself.
Yeah. So essentially now that we have that stuff in, we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about tactics and how to get you in those sections.
Yep.
And how to make an impact, really, like we have here. So we lay out our checklist that we run through pretty much every time. I'm sure when you're working on the Vivial site, when I'm working with clients. So this is essentially a very nice, easy checklist that we put together for this that we're going to break down what it looks like. So for me, what I always like to start with, and I'm sure it's the same thing for you, Eugene, it's always going to start at keywords.
Yeah, absolutely.
Keywords are the fundamentals. It's like building a house, essentially. So I feel like when you build out a digital campaign, keywords are essentially like the first. It's like the ground floor, if you will. And so some of you may say, well, what exactly, when you talk about keywords, what exactly does that mean? So, what we have here is, it's essentially, it's the main descriptors of your business, where it is, what you're doing, what services you offer, essentially to try and draw that business in.
Yeah, and we're about to show you why it's so important to kind of figure out what you want to put effort towards before you actually start working towards it. So we have a pretty specific example for you here. So we decided to do a quick search for plumbers in Portland, and that's Portland, Oregon, not Portland, Maine. And this will show you just how important it is to pick the right keywords. So you can see here that 1,300 people in Portland each month search for a plumber. They just type in plumber. And on average, that's going to cost you a little over $16 if you were to bid on that keyword. So basically that means that every time somebody clicks on your ad when you're bidding on this keyword, you're paying $16 for every click. Now that's going to vary here and there depending on a lot of other factors, but that's a pretty good proxy measure. So let's just say every click is going to cost you $16, about $16.62. Now, one thing to note here, and we will call this out later, so I just thought maybe we could call it out now so you know what we're talking about. When you type in a keyword into Google's keyword tool, and by the way, it's a completely free tool. You can sign up for it. You probably have to put your credit card information in, but you don't ever have to pay them or anything. You can just create an account and use it for free. So when you put in a seed keyword like this, right, so plumber, it'll come back with all sorts of ideas for you that you might not have thought of. So here we're highlighting plumbers near me, and we'll explain why that's actually kind of important, why it's showing up here in the first place. But let's say that your plumbing service offers 24-hour service. Usually if somebody needs a 24-hour plumber, it's probably because they're going through an emergency.
Yeah, it's not a good thing.
Yeah. So calling a plumber at 3 in the morning is probably not because you just want to chat with them for a good time. So obviously you're going to get far less searches. You see here only 30 a month, which makes sense because not everybody's going through an emergency.
We're hoping anyway.
Right. So this is also going to cost you way more. It's over $36 for every click because if you're making a 3 a.m. service call, you're probably going to charge way more than if you were to make a call that was scheduled like a week in advance, right? So again, typically for emergencies, but if you look down below at the suggestions, emergency plumber is actually a suggestion where you're getting more than double the searches and you're going to pay less than a third of the price for each click. So again, it's worth testing because maybe 24-hour plumber is more expensive because it's just more profitable for people. More people are bidding on it. Maybe emergency plumber is less expensive because people just don't know to bid on it. So testing's out. Maybe it's worth running both, right? Maybe the ad costs you a little more, but you're still making money off of it. That being said, that's a great way to run a quick test and see kind of what you want to rank for organically, right? Because we did say that organic rankings take time. It takes a lot of effort. So you can do a quick paid keyword test, see what's converting for you, and then use that as your target for organic.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great too because what they lay out a nice set of options here as well. So it kind of gets your brain going a little bit, things that other options essentially that you could be targeting as well. So it's a really great tool. And again, we talk about the beginning of a campaign. This is typically, again, I'm sure it's the same for you, same for me. This is one of the first places I go.
Every time.
Yeah.
So obviously we saw the poll earlier. Not everybody's doing paid. The majority of people aren't doing paid. So if this last section was a little confusing for you, we'd love to go into more detail. Unfortunately, we have a limited time today. So again, the resource box that I called out earlier at the beginning, we have a link there. We do offer free one-on-one consultations here at Vivial. So if you want to discuss how to go about paid search in more detail, hit us up.
So I feel like that's kind of like when you talk about keywords, that's kind of the first step. So then this is where it gets a little bit trickier. When I say trickier, it's mainly because, yes, as a business owner, typically what we see a lot is that we get a list of keywords, right? Then when we kind of start to plug away and do some research, we kind of find, is that the most accurate? Is that how people are actually searching online? So that's always kind of the balance, and I feel like the dance that we have to do. So what we have here is sometimes the most accurate words for what you do are not the ones that people are actually searching for.
Right. Just because you're in the business, you know the jargon. Not everybody's providing a glossary before they're speaking to people. Like we're hoping we did a good enough job for you, but yeah. So.
Yeah, and I think an example that we talked about before was, say if you're a baker And so say you think, all right, I'm just going to go ahead and target baker because that's what I do. But then you start to dig into a little bit, and is that really the best option? Because then you could see, well, actually, there's so many people searching for wedding cakes. There's so many people searching for birthday cakes.
Yep.
And so then it's a little bit more of a tailored approach, essentially.
Absolutely. So this is how you should actually, the simplest way to go about coming up with keywords.
Yeah.
It's simply just ask.
Yeah, I feel like there's also too, to go back to the tool that Eugene went through before, I think that's a really good place too. If you're familiar with that and you can use that and utilize that tool, that's going to lay out a good amount of options for you. So you're going to put something in, it's going to kind of spit out a few different ideas. And again, that's like we mentioned before, it's going to kind of get the brain going a little bit. But then also too, like you said, it's really simple. I mean, ask around. There's people constantly probably coming in and out of your business. You can engage with people online, ask on Facebook, ask on social media. And then something too that we have here that I'm a really, really big fan of is looking at what competitors are doing, seeing if they're paying for ads, understanding maybe what they wrote down for those ads, what that ad copy looks like. And then also too, just seeing maybe some content they have on their website and a few other kind of tactics that we'll break out into in the next couple of slides.
Yeah. If you have the time and you're really interested, you can seriously just type in a keyword and monitor what your competitors are doing for like a month. And if they're paying for an ad for a month straight, it's probably not because they're losing money on it.
So very true. Yeah. Very, very true.
So the next thing we're going to dive into is listings, which it's kind of the driving force behind the maps section.
Yes.
So really it's actually a bit of a driving force behind the organic section as well. So Google's map is driven by Google My Business, which is a listing in itself, but it's also going across the internet and scanning other listings to make sure that they're consistent and accurate.
Yeah. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of directories out there. Some directories you probably don't even realize are directories. Like Yelp is considered a directory, Foursquare is considered a directory. I'm trying to think what else. There's tons. There's hundreds of them. Yeah. And so essentially, very quickly, when Google goes to look at that map section, and figure out kind of what businesses to put there, it goes through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of directories, and it sees essentially is your information consistent among those. It's going to want to put the best business, and we talk about this. I think a word that we used before was effort. Yeah. With pretty much everything when it comes to search, local search, it's always about effort. So if you're putting the effort into cleaning up your directories, you're probably going to have a good shot of landing in that map section.
Yeah, and just to call out how important this is, local search is actually growing faster than mobile searches, 50% faster. And just to give you an idea of how much that actually is, mobile searches are they've overtaken desktop searches. So more people are searching on their phones than on their computers. And just local searches, both on phone and on computer, is growing faster than mobile searching. So it's absolutely enormous. And actually by 2018, there's going to be 73 billion phone calls generated to businesses from local searches.
Yeah.
So.
And they're definitely putting a really big focus on the map section too, because I don't know if you saw this. They're also for salons and for restaurants. They're adding a click for reservation, click for
appointment.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Went down on that word there. Yes, click for appointment. As well. So that section is going to be more and more competitive, I feel like.
Yeah, and you can actually get phone calls from search without people actually coming to your website. So it's taking steps out of it. You're still getting the phone call. It's really powerful. And again, as we've mentioned, there's just a ton of directories online.
Yes.
And it's very important that all of your information is consistent and accurate across all of them, or else you just won't rank. So you have to think about it from Google's point of view. They want to provide the best results possible to their users. And to do that, they have to provide accurate results. So if you have 100 directories out there and all of them have a different phone number, a different address, or just none of them are consistent, Google's not going to know which information to show, which information is accurate. So if everything's accurate and consistent across the board, then you're pretty good to go. So we do have a resource for you. Again, check out our resource box. We have a completely free tool. Put in your business information, and it'll scan all of the main directories for you in less than a minute, just a few seconds.
Yeah, that image that we have over to the right is an example of it. Literally put your business information in, and it will spit back a report, essentially, in probably, I would say, 2 to 5 seconds.
Yeah, and you'll see if anything is missing, if anything's inconsistent, inaccurate. So very powerful tool for the map section.
All right. Now we're going to jump into, we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about social media. And again, I think when we talk about keyword, I think a keyword here is robust. So we talk about social media profiles. We're going to break out into essentially how to build a nice one, how to build one out to really draw attention from a little bit from search engines, but mainly from users as well.
Yeah. So before we dive into why it's important, we'd love to know which social networks you're actually utilizing for your business. So just like the last poll, we'll take a minute to give you a chance to fill this out.
Yeah.
As you can see, this is a much larger list, and it's not an all-encompassing one by any means, because there's just so many social networks out there. But yeah, we'd love to know what you guys are using out there. And really, it can get pretty overwhelming with the amount of social networks out there.
Yeah, it really can. And so it's really about finding the ones that work for your business.
Yeah.
Like something, if you're doing, I'm assuming something in like finance, like LinkedIn is going to probably be a little bit more useful to utilize versus, I don't know, Google Plus, I would say. I guess that's probably a fair argument.
I think that's a very fair
argument. Yeah.
Or if you're in a design business, Pinterest is obviously going to be more powerful.
Yeah, very true.
Let's pick on Google Plus
again.
Yeah. Or than Twitter. Instagram will be powerful. It's a very visual business. So really, yeah, you don't have to worry about being on all social networks and being active on all of them, because quite frankly, it's impossible.
Yeah. It's really about just being smart. Pick the ones that you think make the most sense.
Maximize the most out of it. Okay, we'll give 5 more seconds for everybody to get their answers in. 3, 2, 1.
And yeah, it seems about right. See, Facebook is the staggering number. It looks like 90% of businesses that we have signed up now, you guys are utilizing that, followed by Yelp, which also too makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, especially for local businesses. And it's actually good that Facebook is so high, because that is one that everybody should be using. And this is why.
Yeah, so when you talk about Facebook, it's it's massive, and I'm sure everybody knows and understands that. So at this point, they're looking at 1.8 billion people on Facebook worldwide, which again is just a staggering number. And that kind of ties into some of the other stuff that we're talking about. Facebook also too at times does turn into its own little search engine, if you will. Yeah. People can go in, do searches through to find local businesses through that way as well. And that's where they can check reviews, photos, do all that stuff that we're also too going to jump into. And
actually, I just noticed this yesterday, so this might be a pretty new feature, but one of my friends checked in at a restaurant on Facebook, and it automatically generated a bar of, here's more places like this next to you. So it's almost forcing local searches on you with recommendations. Wow. So again, if you're a local business and you're getting reviews, that you can get just recommended automatically by Facebook, which is very powerful.
Yeah, I feel like there's been whispers of, we talk about whispers, what was happening with the map section and changes with that, and now it seems like we're seeing whispers. But again, it's all good things of really putting a focus on local businesses, which is really nice and really important.
So again, limited time today, unfortunately. We'd love to spend all afternoon with you, but unfortunately we can't.
We talk a lot, so.
We do have another resource for you that will actually show you how to create robust profiles for Facebook, and kind of gives you even post ideas, basically show you exactly what you need to market your business. So again, it's an interactive ebook also, so it's kind of fun to click through.
It's a good one.
Yeah. All right, moving on to content now. So content we typically think of in terms of the organic section.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it does impact the paid as well. So if you've got great content in terms of what you write in your ad, if you've got great content in terms of the website that you're taking the people to after your ad, people just keep clicking through it, Google will actually charge you less because more people are clicking. So content is one of those things where it kind of overlaps, and it's really important across the board.
Yeah, and I'm sure you guys hear it a ton of content. I feel like maybe it's because we hear it a ton every day. I don't know, but I feel like most people here hear that word quite a bit when we talk about content. On into just a really quick stat that we have here. 1 in 3 people searching on their smartphones end up purchasing from a company other than what they were originally essentially searching for.
Yeah.
So it goes to show that immediacy. I feel like someone looking at it on a phone there's a lot more immediacy there. I think it could be influenced a little bit more when they're doing that.
I think, yeah, if you have good content that can convince somebody you're the right one, that's great. And the other thing is that pretty insane stat, 15% of all daily searches on Google have never happened before. So if you're writing content, just a lot of it, you're actually increasing your chance of hitting some of those keywords that nobody's ever searched before. So
then when we break out into content, and we have an example here, this is actually for an interior design blog. So, all right, well, what does that mean actually? Like when you talk about content again, like what does that mean? So original, that's a really big thing. You can't be stealing things from other people. So it has to be original, has to be readable, well-researched, it has to be relevant too. And when we talk about authoritative, again, typically you want to be writing about something within your industry that I'm sure you guys have a passion and opinion on. So again, just write organically. I think that's the best way to really sum this up. All these bullet points aside, just write organically, write with passion, and I think you'll be good.
Yeah, the way I like to put it is you want to write for people, but edit for search engines because search engines aren't reading, right? But your people are. The people you're targeting are actually reading, so you want them to understand what you're writing.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
That was a fantastic summary.
Oh, yeah.
So now we're going to break, and this could get like a little, we're not going to get too technical, and again, if you can refer back to that resource, that Google Glossary at any point, we're going to break down a little bit of, especially for SEOs, like what you and I look at when we put content together, or if we're reviewing content, either a competitor, or if we get content sent our way for someone, kind of things that we look at.
And this is kind of this is where the editing for search engines comes in.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you want to make sure the right content is in the right places because Google doesn't have a team of elves that's scanning the whole web trying to figure out what every site's about. Again, they're not actually reading, but if you tell them what your page is about, then they'll understand it. So put your most important keywords in your headlines. So the title of the page should be your main heading tag. Subheadings should have keywords in it. As I mentioned, include long tail keywords. So that might be something like, plumber could be your main keyword. Long tail is something more specific, like 24-hour plumber in Boise, Idaho.
Yeah, more of like a phrase.
Yeah.
More of like a sentence, phrase type of search, which also too we see a ton more of. I know I search a lot more that way too. Get more of like a tailored results.
Yeah, and people are getting more and more used to using search engines and getting smarter about it, so they are using more and more detailed searches. Yeah. So.
And then we have the internal links, which again, we're not going to get crazy into detail, but just think of it, if you're writing content about maybe another service that you offer, just link to that service. So it's essentially, instead of linking out to somewhere else, it's an internal link. So again, it just provides a good user experience. If you're talking about something, you probably want that user to be able to find it very easily. Right. And also too for search engines like that, because they see that you're actually being thoughtful with your content. So again, effort, thoughtfulness, same type of stuff.
Yeah. So I guess it's a good thing for everybody that search engines are actually kind of looking for the same thing that users are.
Yeah. And then backlinks with keywords. And again, we won't go into too much detail. We lightly touched on backlinks before. Backlinks are pretty important for search engines. Essentially, it's like breaking down. If other people are talking about you, it kind of, other people, meaning in your industry, other people across the web are linking to your site. It's just a trust factor. It's like if people are saying good things about you and pointing to you, it's like how a human would take it.
Yeah. So back in the early days of search engines, people realized that links coming to your site pretty powerful, and they would just kind of spam the internet with random links. So search engines obviously got smarter. You want authoritative backlinks that are relevant to your site, which is another reason that directories are so powerful, because most of them are very powerful, authoritative websites. So that can actually improve your backlink profile in the eyes of search engines, just having those profiles linking back to your site.
And then the last thing is that a lot of people don't think about is alt tags. So when we talk about alt tags, that's actually for images. So it's a picture, so search engines don't understand what a picture is. They can't. It's not smart enough to understand what. Yeah, it's not smart enough to understand that that's a picture of a modern kitchen. So essentially, all that alt tag is there for is to help search engines understand what that picture actually is. So a nice little sentence, something short to just describe what it is that we're looking at.
Yep. And finally, although maybe we shouldn't say finally because this is kind of before you start publishing content, you need a place to publish it, but you do need an optimized website. And that entails all sorts of things from like mobile optimization to the way your site is coded to how the navigation is built to, again, including things like schema markup, which we're not going to get into today, but again, just basically making it easy for the search robots to kind of scan your website and figure out what it's all about.
Yeah. And again, I mean, just with the rise, the constant rise of digital, I mean, we have some really great stats here too. Of 63% of the time, consumers engage with businesses on their websites, and I know I definitely do that.
Yeah.
I know this is what I do for a living, but I feel like I'm pretty judgmental about people, like as far as their websites go.
Yeah, I mean, you're not the only one. 30% of consumers won't even consider a business that doesn't have a website. Which, again, from personal experience, yeah, especially if it's a company I'm not familiar with, I am going to go on their website and try to kind of figure out what they're all about. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when we talk about optimization and stuff, I'm sure this is something that everyone has dealt with at some point. You go to a website, and you have here on the left, obviously one that's not optimized for mobile, and you have one on the right that is, that looks very pretty, and I'm sure you can navigate through pretty easily, because I'm sure everyone has dealt with that image on the left and does weird pinch zooms and is moving their phone around to try and figure out where to go and what to do. It's kind of a mess. When we talk about optimized websites, this is definitely a really big piece of it.
Yep. And just as an example of what an optimized website is, we'll go to the next slide. Yeah. So this is a mobile responsive site is what we really need. So no matter what device that you're viewing the website on, it's going to adjust. And this is actually extremely important because Google actually, they're moving towards a mobile first index. So what that means is they actually had two different search result types. They had results for when people searched on computers. They had results for when people searched on mobile phones. Now it's all going to be mobile first. So they're kind of merging the two. You need to have a mobile optimized website or else you're just not going to rank.
Absolutely. All right, so another poll time.
Yeah, this time we want to know is your website currently optimized for mobile? A shorter one this time, just a quick yes, no.
Yeah, and also too, if you're not sure, a good way to do it is if you're in your browser right now, and if you go and try and move the page around, shrink it, move it around, and if it adapts, that typically means that it is mobile friendly. If it doesn't, and if everything gets cut off, that's like the best way to describe it, right? Everything kind of gets cut off. Then that means that it's not mobile friendly. And typically, I will say, I mean, I haven't really seen it. If it's responsive, it's also going to be it's going to be fine for tablets as well.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, we'll give it another 3 seconds.
Yeah, it's a shorter one, so. All right, so about 75% have a mobile optimized website. That's great news.
Yeah,
that's great news. So, in building your website, there's really two key users, right?
Yes.
Well, there's really two users. That's it. That's just two users. There's the actual people users, and then there's Google bots or Yahoo bots or Bing bots. But again, we're focusing on Google.
Yeah, and that's that dance. It's always that dance that we have to figure out of thinking about people, then also thinking about the search engines that are affecting your rankings in the background.
Yeah. And for Google, there's really only one key user, and that's the user of your website.
Mm-hmm.
So really, as they've progressed through, since day one that they existed, they've done a better and better job of kind of adjusting their search results to provide websites that provide a good user experience to the person searching.
Yep.
So as you can see, 67% of visitors will switch to another site if it takes them too many steps, which Google knows. So you want to basically put your most important pages forward. And another reason why mobile optimization is so important, because if you have to adjust the screen, that in itself is an extra step.
Yeah, I think when you break it down, I think there's some technical things that have to happen with content, right? When you talk about some SEO editing.
Yeah.
But I think realistically, when you look at a lot of this stuff, if you're building a good website that's fast, that people can use, people are going to like it, which means search engines are going to like it.
which we also call out here. So speed is also important. Again, it's a big user experience thing. So you want your site to load fast. 40% of people will just drop off after 2 seconds. So again, this comes back to how your website is structured and all the technical aspects of it.
Yeah, the world has become impatient, and we just have to adapt, essentially.
And we do have another resource for you, which is the 4 key elements of a great local business website. So again, in the resources section that we called out earlier, go ahead and click through. You can download that, and we'll give you more detail about what a great website should have.
Yeah, for sure. And just look at when you go to someone else's website, like think of how you flow through that website, and is it good to you?
Yeah.
And try and start to bring some of those practices into your website and your digital experience.
Yep. So that's basically the key elements to ranking organically within the map section and in paid search.
Yeah, so when we break it down, we started at the very beginning, keywords, fundamentals, the foundation, the ground floor, if you will. Then starting from there, and then the tools that you utilized, and going through and figuring out a little bit more than what people are actually searching for. And then when you talk about the map section, consistent listing information, and break it, again, so effort, all about effort.
Yep. And again, backlinks it kind of affects both the maps and the organic section. That's one of those things that overlaps. Robust social profiles. It's on the one hand, it's a powerful key for Google to know that you're still in business, right? If you keep publishing content to social, you're not going to do that if you're not in business anymore. But Facebook, as I mentioned, is actually becoming its own local search engine. So that's definitely one that you're going to want to be on.
Engaging and looking good on there.
Yep.
Photos, content, all that stuff.
Yep. And then again, we spoke about fresh content and having your website built for both people and for search engines. So appease everyone. So we are going to actually go over to Facebook Live for the Q&A. It does look like we got some questions that came through, and we'll go over there to answer those. And to join us over there, if you go ahead and click on, if it's not up already, you can click the little Facebook icon at the bottom, and you'll get a little pop-up window with the Vivial Facebook page linked. So go ahead and click through there, click like on Vivial, and after you do that, and we start our live stream, you're going to get an alert. So it'll be at the very top, right there. So go ahead and click on the alert. It'll look a little something like this, and you can just click through it, and you'll find our beautiful faces on Facebook answering your questions. So we'll see you over there in a couple minutes as soon as we get set up, and we'll see you over there.